Hey guys, welcome to my next tutorial. If you want to see my other tutorials, you should go right ahead and see my other tutorials. So basically what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a skill game. I've been making skill games lately. I made ball games. I've made first-person horror games. You guys can go check it out. Even though they're not, you don't really know where to go. You just got to use your mind. It's a puzzle game, you know what I mean? But for now, we're going to learn how to make a scoring system. So to make a scoring system is you can calculate other things, you know what I mean? So we're going to use the bike, alright? Because I don't want to make my own 3D characters. It's going to take like 15-20 minutes to make. So with the bike, is you're going to have a first place. So you're going to have a starting point, point A to point B. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to my favorites, because I like to save all my mathematical calculations in one area. That is my first person setup, and that's my third person setup, which I'll discuss in a later video. Now, there is a scoring system function in here. It's really lagging. There it is. So this is a scoring system, alright? Intended for making skill games. So we're going to make two different types of scoring systems and discuss how they are made. So we're going to have one down here. We're going to copy the whole thing and have one up here. Alright. So what we have here is we have our score value. This is our score value. That means when you select a skill game, you will target your primary or secondary or your tertiary, whatever, to this value right here. It's going to be transferring the data. Everything that acts as a trigger will be targeted to this event, and I labeled it extract function on hits. So everything will be corresponding there. Before we get into all that, let's see how to set it up first. Although it is quite complicated. I'm going to try to move it around so you get a better perception on this one on how to move all these around. Alright, so our first value is we will get a set value event set to increase 1.0. This calculates the amount, alright, that's going to be sent in, and then you select the event targets and you selected this event, which is a variable data source. A variable data source will be on default. Then you will have another set value event set to increase 1.0 and select the filter to this. Then you will select the select event targets to another variable data source. The variable data source is left to default. Then you will have an impulse interval trigger set at 1 tick 16 milliseconds. Select the event filter target and input it to this event. This event is called a generic filter. Make sure it's equals. Make sure your comparison value is set to the variable data source. Make sure your comparison value is 2. Make sure your on true is set to the impulse splitter target. Now with the impulse splitter, you should select event targets in impulse splitter and set it to the off state event. The off state event will then send a signal. Select event targets to the impulse. Now we get to the next step. Select another event as they work as two functionalities, right? You select it to this set value event. This set value event is going to have an increase 1.0 and set event targets to this variable data source. The variable data source is set to default as it does not have to have any missions to accomplish. This impulse splitter will then send a signal to the set value event and then the off state event. Then the off state event will send a select target event through the interval trigger. The interval trigger will then send a 1 tick and 16 milliseconds select event filter to the generic filter. The generic filter will have a 4 value. Comparison value, pressing Y, will then pick the value and select it to this variable data source down here. Then you will select your on true to this impulse splitter. You got that? Alright. So that is the generic filter once again. Make sure it's equals. And that's how you set up a scoring system. Since you know how to set up a scoring system, let's make something great. Let's make collectibles. So we're going to select this set value event, multi-select, then press this set value event, and then this set value event. Those are the 3 corresponding targets. Now we can change the value. Let's change it to 500. So meaning that it'll be at 500, okay? And let's set this value event to times 5. Okay, now at the top we'll leave everything default because the top is different. Now we're going to set up a basic trigger by going into triggers and events, selecting a simple target and selecting the range, blah blah blah. You can select it by just the bike or rider, doesn't matter. Put it on the field, press down on the right stick to lock it into position, and then all you have to do is just hit on hit. Now there's advanced options here: disable off hit or on inactive, on lever, on active. Just remember that those are different on hit events. Selected this event target. Now copy and paste the same event, right? Just move it up and down so it stays at the exact position and corresponded with this event. Now what we must do is we must go to track settings, turn off my music, go to FMX tricks enabled, or you can have them enabled. We're going to go to skill game, and then we're going to go to, you can set your instructions and everything else, but we're going to add a primary score value. Our primary score value will be visible on screen. Then we could select top, left, or right. So we're going to say right, and we're going to adjust the style. We're going to make that style. It looks pretty cool. Then we're going to say data source. Then we're going to say, what's our max score? We're going to say max score, which is like 1.5 trillion, whatever this number is, okay? I have to count the digits, so that's like, I think that's 1.5 billion. This is 5 million? Yeah, this is 1.5 billion. That's the highest number, 1.5 billion. Alright? And then it tells you ascending or descending. Obviously we want descending, which means it's a higher score. And filter generic. Oh, we just screwed it up. Yeah, we want generic. We can select our label. What type of label do we want? We want points or score. Points and score are the same thing. We're going to say score. Select our value target. And that's our primary score. Then we are going to test out the game. And then we're going to set a secondary value score. Let's say if you wanted to make a score on a collectible. Let's say if we wanted to make a spinning key in the world or a coin that spins like Mario. And then you wanted to create the spinning animation, and then create so it's hidden, so when you pick up the key it looks like you picked it up, but it doesn't, because you're using the visible and hidden event, right? So what you do is, if you want to make like collectibles flying in the air, spinning around in circles, you would then, that's a different setup, right? You could always do later on in another tutorial. You're going to put a plate name. We're going to put it on the left side this time. Change the style to the exact same. We're going to say data source. We're going to make the count to 1.5 billion, which is the max number that we can ever have in here, 1.5 billion. Then we're going to say descending. Then we're going to say label. We're going to say items. We're going to say items or rings, whatever. Then we're going to set the secondary value to this, which is secondary score value. So your primary score value means that your primary score value counts, meaning that it only counts the primary value. And then your secondary value means that since people are going to have the max score, then it's going to use the secondary value to round what the positions are on the leaderboards, right? So that's your secondary value. Your third value, which probably doesn't count as time. The third values and fourth values and fifth values are kind of like health and health bars and all this other shit that you could put in your skill game, right? So this is how it's going to be. And that's our time. Now we're also going to do a multiplier. Going really slow here. So our multiplier is going to be a data source. It's going to be center. Let's make it a centerpiece. That doesn't even look like a centerpiece. Okay, well, let's have the same value. Okay, we're gonna just have a 0. It looks more in the center. We're gonna have it at 1.5 trillion, or 1.5 billion, sorry. Because I counted the digits already. It's gonna be file descending generic label. We're gonna say this is going to be our multiplier. Did we pass multiplier? No. Multiplier. There it is, multiplier. And then we're going to say select event target. This. Label as counter 1. And that's our multiplier. That's how you make a score system, by the way. And then when you go to your medal times, make sure you're adjusting. The score value is your score primary. Your secondary is your value. This is just default settings. Obviously, your item you're going to do down all the way to 1, right? Or however many you have. And then your score value, but depending on a huge number of 90,000 or a million, you know what I mean? Depending, 218,000, whatever it is. So remember to adjust your medals. I'm seeing tracks and skill games that the medals are not correct. I admit, I even built one skill game that my scoreboard system is stupid. I apologize. I should have took the time to make a proper game. So just make sure you make a proper game with a proper description and instructions on how to play the game. Just to give you that bonus enhancement knowledge, and people will play your games. If everything works well, make sure you set the track difficulty to the right difficulty. There's obviously easy, the extreme, and then ninja, which is world record, professional, whatever you want to call it. Make sure you make an adjustable difficulty. Don't base it on your skill level. Adjust it how difficult would it actually be. You have to have that notion, that knowledge, to know how difficult a game is. If it's hard or if it's easy, you gotta know. And it gives you this option, the difficulty of your game, how easy it is. Or if it gets easy and then it progressively gets harder as a skill game using distance. Now, since this is a bike game, this is just a generic scoring system, how to build a scoring system and multipliers. So we're going to test out to see if it works. This is going to be our scoring system and our multiplier. Obviously, if I wanted to make another type of multiplier, I have to make another, you know what I mean? I'll explain it more when we test it. We're gonna test it now, you see? 500. You see that? 500. Alright. We have no multiplier yet. We're gonna create another one. On hit is gonna share with this value. I'm gonna copy and paste. You guys screw that up. And then we're going to on hit just to this target up here. Because this target will track how many collectibles are in the map, right? And then this score setting down here will track your score, and then this score setting over here will track your multiplier. Okay? Now, multiplier will be times 5. Let's try this. We'll be selecting to this value right here. So, your range score will be 500. Now this will be times 500 times 5. We'll translate our score. Now let's see if it works. Our first checkpoint, alright, let's see. Alright, it's 500, one item. Let's see what the next one is. 1,000. Multiplier of 5. Multiplier of 5. Now, since we have a multiplier of 5, let's see what our next target's going to be before we cross the finish line. We're going to select the same target and then go up and down because we wanted to have our countable data corresponding with the other target. So we're just going to select it to this. Now, we go through the first one and it's going to be 500... 1,000, and then when we finish, 1,500. Now that's how you make a scoring multiplier. Obviously I did something wrong here. Well, that's how you make a scoring system. Unfortunately, I think you can make multipliers with this, but I don't know how yet. So maybe you just got to take this whole thing, copy and paste it somewhere else, and make it a multiplying system. So maybe you could have 3 categories. You could have a scoring system, a multiplying system, and a tracking system. So what I know how to do right now that I showed you is how to build a scoring system, right? If you want to make it more complicated and modify it to make it more advanced, it's all up to you. But unfortunately, you can make a multiplier in this. A year ago, I've made a multiplier on this on Evolution. Well, I used to play on Evolution. So I know that you can make a multiplier. I just forgot how. Just got to play around with it and see what you can come up with, obviously. But making a separate category will be your best bet to make a multiplier. Obviously, you probably would need a times to multiply the target. Just keep that in mind. So there you have it. You have a tracking system and a scoring system. Now, depending on how high your points is, you can copy this whole thing and take it somewhere else and say, this will be the 1,500 point, or this will be this amount of point. And maybe that's how you make multipliers and make more things. So if you have like 3 items, have a red one, a yellow one, and a green one. The green one will give you 1,500. The yellow one will give you 3,000, and the red one will give you 10,000. That's how you arrange up the points. So you'll have your multiplier, your scoring ranges, or your different scoring ranges, but depending on the collectible, and your tracking system at the top, which tracks how many did you get, what and how many was the score. Obviously, by 1 is 500, so it's going to be 500 more per every one you collect. and you can have an ultra grand score for reaching the end as well as a bonus. So that's how you make a scoring system in Trials Fusion. So I hope this tutorial helped. I hope I did an in-depth tutorial on how to maximize it at the end. You can apply this to any custom character you want to make, like a boat or a ball or whatever. I have a tutorial how to make a ball game or any other type of game. You could use that knowledge to make anything else you want. My next tutorial is going to be something else. But until then, I'm Sam the Legend, and I hope this tutorial helped you make a scoring system. Alright, see you.